Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He is Dillon Atkinson, not Ryan Blake, filling in for Ryan Blake. Dillon is this week. Dillon, good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul.
Glad to have you. How's your Saturday starting out?
Not too bad. Kids actually just got out of the house. I'm getting ready to meet up with the wife and kids after this and go on a little boat day for my brother-in-law's birthday.
Nice. That'll be a good day. I was supposed to do this couple's barbecue for a friend of mine's wedding that's in October, but I've got to work. We just got back from vacation. It's right in the middle of when I've got to work, so I can't make that, unfortunately. But glad to have you here today to help us out with the show. Thank you again for doing that for us. Just want to remind everybody, today's show brought to you by Royal Farms. There's just 1 week left in Royal Farms' annual Chicken Palooza celebration. This year's deals include a 3-piece meal for just $8 and an 8-piece meal for just $12. Plus, you can go to royalfarms.com and enter for your chance to win chicken for a year. And while you're there, vote for your favorite charity, as Royal Farms is donating 10 cents from every 3-piece meal sold during Chicken Palooza to the winning charity. Plus, don't forget to get your Chicken Palooza gear to celebrate everyone's favorite season. Stop by your neighborhood Rofo today before these great deals are gone. Dillon, last night's game, they were dead in the water.
Yeah.
It's 5-2. I actually turned on a show that my wife and I have been watching because they had 3 hits. I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, they're lifeless. They're dead. I'm not going to watch them die a slow death these last 2 innings. So I changed it, and we start to watch the show, and our baby starts to cry. So she woke up. So my wife goes up to deal with her. I look at my phone and shows Colton Cowser had led off the 8th inning with a single, and I'm like, all right, I'll turn the game back on. Turn the game back on. Adley works like a 7 or 8 pitch walk. And then Gunnar hits this ground ball that who was it? Garcia? Was that the pitcher?
Abreu.
I couldn't remember. Abreu makes this miraculous play. It looked like he backhanded the ball behind his body between his legs to field the ground ball off of Gunnar's bat. Now, look, if he doesn't touch that, it's probably a deflating double play. But instead, he manages to field this ball, and he throws back to third base to try and get Colton Cowser, who had started to head down the line, and realize, oh, crap, let me get back. So Cowser gets back to the bag. The tag is slapped down. He's ruled safe. Somehow, I will never understand this. You lose your challenges for the game, and yet you can ask the umpires to do a crew chief review. Now, in my opinion, the crew chief should ask for the review on his own. If you ask for it, there's no review because you've already lost your reviews. You shouldn't be able to ask. I've always had a problem with this, but this is the way it is. They do the review. Luckily, it wasn't enough to overturn. Cowser's rolled safe. Bases are loaded. Now, Santander comes up to the plate. Dillon, I don't know if you've realized this, but Santander has been in a bit of a slump.
Yes.
Going into last night's game, I think he was something like 6 for his last 51.
Mm-hmm.
The average is down to the low 230s. Look, he has the 37 homers. He has the 80 RBI. He's having a great season. But he's been coming up small in some big opportunities. It seems like he's gotten a little bit home run happy. Mm-hmm. So, to me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, he's going to pop this up to first base. And he gets it to what? A 2-2 count?
Mm-hmm.
And took a couple of pitches that I thought maybe he would have swung at. So I'm feeling maybe a little bit more confident. And then he gets a fastball above the letters, about shoulder high. And he tomahawks that SOB 403 feet into right field for a go-ahead grand slam. Orioles go up 6-5 after trailing 5-2 heading into the bottom of the 8th inning. He looks at the dugout, throws his bat, as he's starting to head down to first base. Everybody's fired up. Corbin Burns is standing there, complete disbelief. He's not even showing emotions. And just an amazing moment. Orioles pull out the victory 7-5. You get a scoreless inning from Dominguez after blowing 2 consecutive saves in New York in devastating fashion. Both 3-3 games, both walk-off homers with a 3-ball count. But the Orioles managed to pull out an improbable victory last night after Cade Povich goes 5 innings. He allows 5 earned runs on 8 hits, including 2 home runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. And Hunter Brown, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 2 walks, 6 Ks. The Orioles looked like they couldn't do anything against him. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball the second half of the season.
He's been nasty.
They look dead in the water, Dillon, and somehow the Orioles go out there and pull out this victory. Your thoughts on the game, but also, is this the spark that this team needs?
It might be the spark that this team needs. I mean, but as far as my thoughts on the game, the team has looked lifeless, as you've said. I was lifeless myself as I passed out on the couch during Craig Kimbrell's inning. And I found myself actually waking up to Kevin Brown's call of the Santander home run. So I literally opened my eyes to watch it fall into the stands. So
what?
I'm like, what the heck just happened? So I had to go back and rewatch some of that inning. I was like, what the heck did I miss? Maybe I got to do this more often. But, but as you've said, they've looked lifeless for the longest time now, especially in this series alone. Couldn't do anything with Hunter Brown. Like you said, he's been one of the best pitchers in the second half. His stuff is absolutely nasty, and they couldn't do anything with it. And it just looked like it was going to be, it's 5-2 right now, soon to be, who knows, 7-2, 8-2, and who knows where this is going to go. Right. But just to be able to put something together, not only put something together in the 8th inning, but actually cash in on it. Because we've seen some time and time again, not necessarily from last night, but in the Mets series and early on in the Astros series, of getting guys on base, getting guys in scoring position, and not putting together good at-bats to drive those runs in when you got ducks on the pond.
Right.
We've seen time and time again where you got a leadoff double, and you're like, cool, we're showing some life. And then you got ground out to short, keeps the runner at second, strikeout, ends the inning. And you got nothing more. So it was good to see that they were actually able to put something together and actually stay in a ball game and show some life. As you saw from Santander's screen, the entire dugout goes nuts. The crowd goes nuts. So you hope that this is something that can spark games to come. Am I expecting them to go out now and win the next 2 against Houston? I'm not so sure. If you can win 1 of 2 and then take that as a good sign into the next series, all the better.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a tough road to hoe coming up. It eases up at the end of next week when they face Colorado, but they've got to go out to LA and play Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and the LA Dodgers. So it's not going to get easier. If you could somehow salvage a split out of this, I'd love for them to win 3 of 4, because then you're looking at a 4-3 week instead of 3-4 or 2-5. Losing those 2 games to the Mets, they should have won the game on Monday. They should have lost the game on Wednesday. They managed to battle back and then gave it up again. But you've got to take 2 or 3 from the Mets. You've got to prove that you're a better team than them. Hopefully this is the spark. Now they're drawing they have a tough draw today facing Framber Valdez. But they've got their ace on the mound today in Albert Suarez. So hopefully they can get things going after a huge morals raising victory against the Houston Astros last night. Colton Cowser, before Tony Taters hit that grand slam, I put in the notes Povich's line, Brown's line, and then the only highlight was Cowser's home run. But Cowser had that leadoff single in the 8th inning to get things going. Coming through again from the top of the lineup, he's going to strike out. The guy's going to strike out a lot. But he's been getting big hits for the Orioles the second half of the season. The bat looks like it's been far more consistent than it was basically from May through July. So good things from Colton Cowser in yesterday's game as well. He's playing that steady defense, and he's going to have to play that steady defense because I saw a Rock report last night that it was an ACL injury for Cedric Mullins. We heard them talking about a quad soreness for Cedric Mullins. I have no idea what it is. Either way, not good, because now you've got to have Austin Slater seemingly play every day, because the Orioles don't have any. And you're also going to see a lot of Ryan O'Hearn back in the outfield, I think, because the Orioles don't have any outfielders waiting in the wings to come up to the major league level right now because of all the injuries.
Yeah, that's going to be a little rough being without Mullins. You've traded Hayes, you've traded Stowers. Kerstad's still dealing with the concussion symptoms.
Yep.
You don't know when to expect him to come back. That was the major blow there, because even if Kerstad was getting sent down to Norfolk, you would have him as a depth option to, if there was an injury to happen, boom, you move Cowser to center, throw Kerstad in left field. Not the most ideal option at Camden Yards with the large left field, but it'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Now with Slater, this is honestly his shot to put up or shut up necessarily. I mean, it was a head-scratching trade move when it happened, just because of how terrible the numbers have been for him this season. But it's clear the Orioles wanted to give him a shot to get back to what he used to be, because prior to this season, Austin Slater has put together a great resume against left-handed pitching. This season, not so much at all. They've wanted to give him every opportunity to do that. I still scratch my head when they throw him in the leadoff spot, but who am I to second guess it when somehow every time I second guess it, he comes up with 2 or 3 hits a game?
I mean, yeah, for the Orioles in 14 games now, 30 plate appearances, his slash line is 400, 500, 600, 1,100 with a 218 OPS plus. Now, look, that's video game numbers. He's not going to keep putting those numbers up, but he seems to have been doing the job since the Orioles made that trade for him. And maybe he feels like he's in a better opportunity now, an opportunity where he's going to get to play, and he wants to make good on this. Now, you look at it, when he got here, he was hitting 193 versus left-handed pitching this year. That average is up to 212 with a 331 on base percentage. So the slugging percentage isn't great, but he's got 1 home run, and that came the other day. So he's doing better than he was. Yeah. Do I think that he should be getting the playing time he's been getting? And moving forward, and do I think that he should be leading off? Probably not, but he's earned the opportunity based on the small sample size, 30 plate appearances with a 400, 500, 600 slash line. He's doing what they are asking him to do to this point. So until he proves that he can't, I did have an issue with a ground ball that he hit the shortstop the other day against the Mets. It was a slow roller. Lindor took his time fielding it and then double clutched the throw. And I thought it was going to be a close play, because I know this Slater has at least a modicum of speed. And he was out by 5-6 feet because he was jogging down the line, which I think is completely unacceptable for a fourth outfielder who might be on the last legs of his big league career right now. Getting an opportunity, you've got to prove yourself. You can't Bobby Big League it down the line. But that issue aside, he's earned the opportunity. He's going to get it if Mullins is hurt, especially for any extended period of time. And that Kerstad injury is really the big blow here, because he hasn't been right since that concussion set in. He may not be right the rest of the year. These things, Justin Morneau, former MVP, and his career was ruined by a concussion. Brian Roberts' career was ruined by a concussion. This is nothing to joke about. So 97 miles an hour to the back of the head. We hope that Kerstad can get back and be okay, but it's a big blow for this team with the Mullins injury last night, for sure. Now, if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's 1-800-GAMBLER or helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Today's show is brought to you by helpmygamblingproblem.org. I want to talk a little bit about Corbin Burnes, Dillon. Now, look, the rotation got some bad news at the beginning of the week and some good news at the end of the week regarding Zach Eflin. Eflin went on the 15-day DL retroactive to last Saturday, the 17th, with shoulder inflammation. And we're like, we can't catch a break. Now that's Means, Bradish, Rodriguez, Eflin, Kramer, who spent time on the IL. And Burnes is pitching like a friggin' pile of dog crap right now. what is going on? But then we get good news yesterday that on Thursday night, that Eflin said his shoulder feels 100 times better than it did. He doesn't think he's going to need a rehab start, so he should be back. I believe that Saturday the 31st is when he's eligible to come off the IL, and he should be back in time for that start, whether it's that Saturday, that Sunday, the following week. Should be back in time for that start without having to make any rehab appearances. Now, the bad news is, like I said, Corbin Burnes has been pitching like a pile of dog crap. He's got an 8.71 ERA his last 4 starts. He's got a 5.75 ERA in the second half. So he seems to get through the first 3-4 innings fine, unscathed, looking like Corbin Burnes. And then in the 5th or 6th inning, something happens, whether it's a defensive miscue or he gives up a double on a 2-strike pitch, or you name it, something happens. And then he lets it snowball, and he's just giving up. And he's not giving up. That's not true. He'll give up a big 3-run homer. That's what happened in that game where he gave up 8 runs on 10 hits. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like he's giving up singles. I mean, Ben Gamble is the one who's going to come through with the big base hit off of you. Like, I didn't even realize Ben Gamble was still playing. I haven't heard his name in 4 years.
I think Thursday night's game was his first game with the Astros.
Yeah, like, where the hell did he come from? And, of course, he's getting a big base hit off of Corbin Burnes, of all people. But Burnes has not looked good in the second half, specifically his last 4 starts. What have you seen from Corbin Burnes that has made this apparent in your eyes, or is it just bad luck?
I mean, it's not all just bad luck. I think he's going through a rough patch and trying to figure out some things. I have noticed that over these last few starts, he's trying to make a concerned effort to slow down the traffic of base stealers. Mm-hmm. You see him start working with a slide step more, and I saw him give up a beautiful 3-run shot during a slide step. I don't know if it's stuff that he's still working on with his mechanics and everything on how to still hit his spots while he's in that slide step. I don't know if that's part of the issue or if it's just a matter of, I don't think he's wearing down right now. He's still got good velocity on the fastball. The stuff is still good. He's still getting good break on all of his pitches. It's just the command isn't there right now. He's not putting it where he wants to right now. Mm-hmm. So am I concerned for the rest of the season for Corbin Burnes? Not necessarily, because I know his track record, and I have more confidence in Burnes to get back to his former self than I would if Cade Povich was to go on a 4-game terrible stretch, and I'm not going to expect him to come back and pitch like he did against Boston.
Right.
So that I don't have that much concern that Burnes will get back to where he's supposed to be. I think he will. It's just a matter of when. Mm-hmm. I do find it a little amusing because the last time you had me on here, one of the topics of discussion was, is Corbin Burnes pitching like an ace? And we debated that a little bit. We can't debate that right now. I think that's a clear-cut answer of these last 4 starts. But a lot of the conversations I think we're going to be having today are actually going to be kind of like deja vu to what we had back in May.
It's funny because last Saturday I was saying that Corbin Burnes is not an ace. I'm back on that side again. And my reasoning behind it, Dillon, is he's very good. He's very good. And we know that. I feel like we confuse consistency with being an ace, because I look at stuff at what a Max Scherzer does at his peak, 2011 to 2022. I look at what Max Scherzer does. And that's a guy who will go out there when your team needs it and give you 7-8 innings of shutout or 1-run ball and strike out double digits. That to me is an ace. And I think that it's kind of, and I said it to Ryan last week, it's kind of like that is Joe Flacco elite conversation.
Here we go.
All right. Because we talk about quarterbacks and how they're elite. There's like 5 guys that are in that tier that are elite. And then there's the next tier, which is incredible. And then, like, to me, an ace is the upper echelon. The upper echelon. There might be 5 pitchers in the game that are aces. You show me a Corbin Burnes who is going 26, 27 starts without a scoreless outing this year. He's got an 8.71 ERA his last 4 starts, a 5.75 ERA his last 8 starts. You show me that. You show me a guy who, his last quality start was 6 innings of 3-run ball. That's not an ace. That's a number two. I've got a number two on my hands who now we're talking about. And the reason I say this is because I really like Corbin Burnes. I would love for him to be an Oriole. But can you afford to give Corbin Burnes, whose peripherals are down each of the last two seasons, can you afford to give him $30 to $40 million a year when you've got other guys on your roster who you've got to pay? You've got other pitchers who are going to be out there who might be cheaper for a year or two until you get a healthy Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells back. Can you afford to give Corbin Burnes $30 to $40 million? And that leads me to my other point, is how likely is he even to sign here? Because I think part of this could be mental, because his wife just had twin girls back in July. They live in California. He's pitching in Baltimore. You can't get further away. Yeah. He's 3,000 miles away from his wife and his newborn baby girls. I would not be shocked at all to see him even sign with the Angels next year. I think that he's destined to go to pitch in California. Your thoughts on the mental aspect, his maybe desire to pitch in California, and is he worth $30 to $40 million that he's going to ask for in the open market?
To tap into the last point, it's tough to say exactly what he's worth in the open market because the market's going to dictate it itself, right? We see these contracts go further up and further up every single year to the point where we're seeing teams pay $15+ million a year for a back end veteran innings eater. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So these prices are going north, where to get yourself an ace, you're paying at least $40 million a year. To get yourself, by my definitions, I have a difference between an ace and a number one. Even I go all the way up to number one and then the ace, and I'm kind of in that bottom tier number one territory for Corbin Burnes right now, which would command probably $35 million plus a year. But we'll see how the market dictates that. Depends on how many teams are in on him. I did see an article earlier this week released by The Athletic where there were some questions asked to Corbin Burnes on his take on free agency coming up. You know, he mentioned that, you know, his priority is focusing on the World Series this year, but spoke about free agency. He said it's going to be more than just money. He said, I'm going to be doing my own research on not only teams' location, but also these teams' farm systems. How long are you going to be in contention for? He said, or are you just throwing me money just to make your fan base happy? And we're actually not going to be in contention. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be keeping an eye on that. But I do think that you're right with the newborns coming in, the newborn twins. He's way far away from home. Could have an impact on how he's pitching right now. Who knows? Because remember, he had those twins right before the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. And all this is happening since the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. So I do think there's a decent chance that he's going to be wanting to go back on the West Coast if a competitive ball club wants to give him that money.
Yeah.
I do think he will be turning it around at some point. It's just a matter of when. Could there be an opportunity for the O's to get him a couple of extra days of rest? I don't know. It's really tough with these injuries on hand. It is good news that Eflin's coming back soon, but it's tough with these injuries. And this really couldn't be a worse time for Corbin Burnes to go through this stretch, right? I mean, if he had this stretch when the Orioles were fully stacked in the rotation with Bradish, Rodriguez, Means, everybody in it, you know, maybe this gets overlooked and we are all saying he'll get out of it soon. We'll be okay. But in this stretch right now where the Orioles are thin at starting pitcher, it's tough.
Well, and it looks like his next start is likely going to come against the Dodgers. But then his next start after that will come up against the White Sox. His next start after that will come against the Red Sox. And then his next start after that will likely come against either Detroit or San Francisco. Well, it's not either. They go Detroit, San Francisco, Detroit. So he's got an opportunity if he's going to face off against the Dodgers are going to be tough, right? But if unless they push him back to face Colorado, maybe in that first game and then face the Whites to kind of get him back on track. If you can face Colorado and the White Sox back to back, and then after that, you know, he goes and he faces Boston and then Detroit and then San Francisco. He's got an opportunity to get back on track. The Orioles' schedule is going to soften here after they play the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. And so he has an opportunity to get back on track. I do remember him saying he's going to do his own research and that he's going to want to be, you know, he's going to want to play for a team that's going to be in contention. Their farm system makes it look like they're going to be in contention for a long while. The Orioles are that team. but they're also extremely far away. If the Dodgers are saying, hey, we're willing to pay you that kind of money, he looks at the Dodgers farm system, which is very good, and he looks at the Dodgers contention window, which is it's open for eternity. That's going to look pleasing to him. An Angels team, probably not, right? Maybe the Padres look intriguing to him. And then I also like what you said about oh my gosh, I completely lost my train of thought. You were talking about
worst timing, or
well, not worst timing. It was right around the time that we were talking about, is he going to go? Does he want to go to the West Coast? I can't remember now. There was something you said that resonated with me. It'll probably come back here in a little bit, but Corbin Burnes has an opportunity to do something for the Orioles. I do think he'll get back on track. And then with Zach Eflin coming back, hopefully they can get him going again. Trevor Rogers optioned down to AAA, which, are you shocked or did you see this coming? He hasn't pitched well. It was that trade is getting panned across baseball right now. It was I hated it. I was very, very outspoken about how much I hated the trade when it happened. And he didn't do anything to squash those worries or concerns for me. Are you shocked about Trevor Rogers going back? And then on top of that, how are we feeling about Dean Kramer after his last two starts?
With Rogers, I'm not necessarily surprised that they optioned him. I'm surprised that they optioned him with how thin they are at starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I was noticing after his first couple starts, I'm like, holy crap, this guy still has three option years left. How the heck did this happen? And they showed a willingness last year when they traded for Cole Irvin. They didn't waste any time. What was he, 2-3 starts into the season? They sent him to Norfolk. And we were all like, okay, Orioles mean business if they're willing to send a guy who they were pinning to be their number 2, number 3 starter back to Norfolk after just trading for him. And they're doing kind of the same thing with Rogers, where I wasn't ecstatic about the trade when it happened. I wasn't ecstatic about what Trevor Rogers is and what Trevor Rogers can be. And I wasn't necessarily upset with the trade compensation.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Kyle Stowers, 26 years old, and Connor Norby, basically a luxury for the Orioles to have at that point. I wasn't necessarily upset with the trade compensation because that's realistic what you're probably going to have to give up for a back-end starter with multiple years of control. Wasn't upset about the trade compensation. It was just the fact of you're trying to go for it this year, and it seems you traded for a guy who you think you can fix and make into a good starter over these next couple of years. And if you can, that's great. But you need to win now. That kind of thing. And so, in a sense, it was almost frustrating in one sense that you even optioned him, just because if you need him to figure it out, you need him to figure it out here and now, especially while your rotation is thin. I get why they did it, though. They want to fix him, and also with how beat up the bullpen has been, they needed to option him just to bring up another bullpen arm to help out in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Dean Kramer goes, he is showing some great life over these last couple starts, life that I did not know was ever going to come, because in the starts prior to that, he's getting tossed around a few. He's walked a ton of guys, lost command, and you start to wonder, is this guy even going to be capable of starting a game 4 in a playoffs, let alone a game 3? So over these last couple starts, what has he done? 6 innings, 1 run in each of them.
Yep.
It's been really good to see from Kramer, and it couldn't have come at a better time, realistically.
He's looked like 2022 Kramer, his last 2 starts, or mid-season last year. Mm-hmm. He's looked much better. Kind of gives you a little bit more hope. And real quick, that trade for Trevor Rogers, Kyle Stowers, 127, 214, 127 slash line. 341 OPS. He's got a -3 OPS plus with the Marlins and 26 strikeouts in 63 at bats.
That's right.
Connor Norby, however, he got called up the other day. In 4 games, he's 5 for 16 with 3 doubles and an RBI and a stolen base. So Connor Norby is kind of looking the part, getting some playing time and not squandering it there in Miami. I hope he has a really good career. I really like Connor Norby, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with that team. But if you get Corbin Burnes back pitching the way that he's accustomed to, you get Zach Eflin back and he doesn't skip a beat coming off the IL, Then you've got Dean Kramer pitching well, Albert Suarez pitching well. You got Grayson Rodriguez coming back. How much confidence do you have in a rotation that, let's say, it's Burns, Eflin, Rodriguez, and Suarez in the postseason? And then, as with the way that the Orioles are playing right now, how confident are you in them even getting to the postseason?
Oh man, it's a little early to tell right now. As crazy as it sounds, being in late August with a little over a month to go, and saying it's too early sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen teams time and time again, season to season. Sometimes it's crazy when you see a calendar switch right to the next month. And it's crazy going from August 30th to September 1st. And it's like just a snap of a finger. The team is completely different, whether it's for better or worse. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, aside from the fire they showed in the 8th inning last night, this team just has not been clicking in any department. We have seen struggles from this team over the course of this season, last season, wherever, where when they're in a funk, it's because the offense failed the starting pitching, or the bullpen failed the starting pitching, or the starting pitching failed the offense. It's kind of one area of the game kind of faltering there. Right now, we haven't seen over these past couple of weeks any facet of the Orioles games clicking on all cylinders over a 3-game series. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all been very inconsistent. And I know this is just wishful thinking at this point, but I'm almost wondering, the Astros pretty much put the Orioles into this when they swept them in Houston. The Orioles were coming off a huge, great first, 3 weeks of June in that terrible schedule, going up against the Yankees, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Orioles were coming through and winning series with only one off day for that entire month at that point. They go into Houston, which not only started Adley Rutschman's slump after his 5-for-5 first game there, that's what started the Orioles skid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started making them inconsistent. So you almost hope, can we come full circle now? We're back facing Houston. Can Houston get the Orioles back on track now?
That's got to be what the hope is. You know, can the Orioles win today? Can they win tomorrow? Can they win 3 or 4 with the off day coming up, heading into LA, playing with more confidence? You know, and it's, you know, we can blame the injuries to the pitching staff as much as we want, but the bottom line is that the Orioles have scored 3 runs or less 47 times this year.
Yeah,
that's a third of the season, right? And they're 8-39 in those games. 8-39 in the games where they score 3 runs or less. They've done it 7 times. They've had 4 hits or less 18 times this year and 7 times since the All-Star break. Like, the offense is, and here's the thing, the offense went through this in May also, when the pitching staff was completely healthy, and the Orioles were winning ball games because their team ERA was like 2.96. So they could win a game 3-2. They could win a game 4-1. You know, but now the pitching staff is mediocre at best. So you're looking at a team, if your team gives up 4 runs, you're still losing ball games 4-3. Yep. And so now the offense is glaring because of the pitching. This offense has too much talent to play as poorly as they have for such an extended period.
Yeah, and we can't even necessarily blame it on the Jordan Westburg injury per se, because unbelievably enough, Ramon Arias has been the hottest hitter on the Orioles recently.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since he basically started getting the everyday reps, which was in the Tampa series in Tampa Bay, he's batting .293 with a 933 OPS.
Right.
He's filling Jordan Westburg's shoes. Maybe not as much defensively, but as far as at the plate, he's the one that's actually had it clicking over these last couple series, surprisingly enough. But sometimes
a triple and a stolen base from Ramon Arias last night. Who would have thought it?
The slowest guy on the field, which for his build and his size, I am still always mind-boggled at how he is the slowest guy on the team.
It's crazy to me.
You never predicted just looking at his stature. But realistically, you know, I just spoke about how Houston is what started the Orioles slump. That's what also
Mm-hmm.
started Adley Rutschman's slump.
Mm-hmm.
Since Adley went 5 for 5 in that first game in Houston, he is batting 184 with a 283 on base percentage over the past 191 plate appearances.
That's crazy.
Now, in the last, ever since he had the pinch hit triple in Cleveland, which that was almost seeming like, wow, that was from the left side. He pinch hit it, he hit a triple. Could this
the guy
be
fell down?
I know it still works. It still goes down as a triple in the book.
Right.
He is batting 275 since then,
Mm-hmm.
which still not as good as what you need Adley Rutschman to be because it only comes with a 310 OBP and 431 slug. We're starting to see better at bats from Adley. We still need it to be better.
Yeah.
And you almost wonder, even though Adley Rutschman is not the best player on the team, we know it's Gunnar Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Orioles kind of go as Adley goes?
I think they do.
You know, in that time frame of Adley batting 184 since going 5 for 5 in Houston, the Orioles are 26 and 29. Mm-hmm. They were 20 and 7 going into that Houston series since their sweep in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So they went from 20 and 7 to 26 and 29 like that.
And it does coincide also with losing Means and Bradish for the season.
Sure.
And that does hurt the team. And we're going to get into this here in just a second. I want to remind everybody today's show is brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. If you missed anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, including conversations with Corbin Burns, Buck Showalter, Enrique Bradfield Jr., and more, you can find them all right now in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. And watch or listen to GCR every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or right here on Facebook and YouTube. And we're talking about this, Dillon, the Orioles offense and how they've been kind of falling short. Anthony Santander, huge grand slam last night. But that just made him 9 for 55 with 4 home runs and 17 strikeouts since his 2-homer game on August 7th. To me, it feels like he's gotten homer happy. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Adley Rutschman. He's 4 for 26 with 1 home run and 1 walk since collecting 3 and 2 hits in back-to-back starts on August 10th and August 13th. Jackson Holliday is 1 for 23 since his 4-hit game last Friday, and that hit came the next day on Saturday. Mountcastle hasn't hit a home run in August and has just 2 since June 8th. Ryan O'Hearn hasn't homered since July 20th, which means O's first basemen have 6 home runs combined since June 8th. We talk about the injuries to the pitching staff. The Orioles are 4 games below 500 in their last 56 games, have scored 3 runs or less in 24 of those games, and they're 3-21 in those 24 games where they score 3 runs or less. Me personally, I think the entire coaching staff needs to be let go. They have 2 hitting coaches and an offensive strategist in their dugout, and they've scored 3 runs or less 24 times in their last 56 games. To me, there's something that needs to happen because this offense, and specifically, Adley and Mountcastle, this offense is underperforming across the board.
Oh, hands down. It has been. I mean, I remember I sent out a thread of tweets, what was it, last week, just saying how much I miss, even when he has the high batting average, I miss power hitting Ryan Mountcastle. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much put it out there that, the pushback wall is to blame for a couple missed home runs for him that turned into either doubles or flyouts. But realistically, he's not hitting homers on the road. Mm-hmm. He's actually performing better at home than he is on the road right now. And ever since he had, 2021, where he hit over 30 home runs, he's averaging about 20 home runs a season. And right now, it looks like he's not even going to reach 20.
Yeah, he had 21 home runs in 2022. He had 18 home runs last year, and he's at 13 this year.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even blame the wall being pushed back for being that low. You still expect him to be a fairly consistent 20-plus home run hitter regardless. Right. You still play 81 games on the road where you can get your cheap home runs in Fenway and New York and everything like that. And plus, majority of your home runs that you've been hitting tanks on or have been to dead center.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we see the raw power, we see the powerful swing and everything. The results just haven't been there for Mountcastle. He's
got crazy power to the opposite field too, and he's not utilizing it.
Yeah, and that's when we're really able to tell when Mountcastle is going right now is when he's driving the ball the other way. When he's not driving the ball the other way, any chance he gets down on 2 strikes that a right-handed pitcher can just toss in a slider on there, and he's on his way back to the dugout.
Yeah, there was an at-bat that he had the other day where the Orioles needed a big hit, and he took back-to-back sliders that he would normally, when he's going bad, he would be swinging at, and he took them, and he ended up barreling up a ball, and he hit it hard to right field. It was caught, but I thought to myself, that's a really nice at-bat for Ryan Mountcastle. That's a really nice at-bat, and then he gets hurt sliding into a base, and he's out the next game. But I always feel like he's on the cusp, and he has been getting his hits. But a lot of them are to right field. A lot of them have been bleeders to right field. The power is just completely gone. I don't know what it is. There was an article that somebody wrote earlier this season where he said that he was able to go more for the home runs when the team wasn't contending. But now that the team is good, he's trying to do his part to more get base hits. But it's like, dude, you hit in the middle of the order more often than not. We need you to hit some home runs.
And it's not just that, but Mountcastle's never been known to be a high on base guy who takes his walks. High batting average only gets you so far, up into the 270s, 280s if you're good enough. If you're not walking as well with that, you need some pop in your bat.
Yeah.
He strikes out a decent amount. He doesn't walk. You need to be driving the ball to the gaps and over the fence.
Agreed.
Singles hitter is not going to get you going if you're not taking your walks with it, and your on base clip is only going to be in the 310s and 320s.
Yeah, and 6 home runs out of first base for the entire team since June 8th. That can't happen. That's supposed to be one of your power positions. I would love to see if Kobe Mayo is playing first base down at AAA. I know that I've been seeing his name a lot more in my AAA, in my Norfolk notifications recently. He had a 2-run home the other night. He had a triple last night. But I'm wondering if he's been playing first base since he's been down there, because the Orioles have to get better production out of first base. And I like Ryan O'Hearn. I think he's a great story, but I thought he'd hit more home runs than he has. He's got the 12 home runs. Mountcastle's got 13, or 13, which is not 25 home runs from first base at this point of the season is nice, but how many more could they have if they hadn't completely been sapped of all their power in the last almost 3 months? It's pretty remarkable that the numbers are even where they are, considering just the lack of power the last 2.5 to 3 months. So the Orioles got to get it going. Jackson Holliday absolutely has to get it going. I think he's something like 0 for his last 19 now. 1 for 23 this past week, which means Ryan kicked my butt in take to rake. I don't even think Gunnar had a great week, but he was better than Holliday. But Holliday has got to get it going. I would not be surprised to see him get the day off today, especially with a tough lefty on the bump. I think you'll see Emmanuel Rivera. I think you'll see him get a start at third base and Ramon move over to second base. We'll get into the lineup here a little bit later on in the show, but the offense has got to get it going. Hopefully Tony Taters grand slam last night. I prefer my Taters mash, baby. Hopefully that's the spark that this team needs. They can get it going, like you said, against Houston after Houston kind of sent them into the tailspin, so to speak, and get this thing up and running, because the Orioles have a big opportunity. We talked about it in the show 2 weeks ago. The Orioles have a big opportunity in September they've got 12 games against the Rockies, the White Sox, and the Tigers in the first 3 weeks and then they've also got games against Tampa Bay, Boston, who they've owned this year, and the San Francisco Giants, who, if they somehow can miss one, if not both, of Webb and Snell, it would bode well for the team. They've got a big opportunity to clinch a postseason berth by the 3rd week of September, but they've got to get through Houston and the Dodgers before they can do that. And it starts, hopefully last night with that big hit from Anthony Santander.
Sure.
Yeah. The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens star safety Kyle Hamilton, detailing his path from being the son of a basketball player to choosing football and being overlooked in the draft and turning into a defensive unicorn as a playmaking Swiss Army knife in the NFL. Also inside, meet college football players from all of the area's D1 programs and some of the area's college soccer standouts as well. You can find that print issue of Press Box all throughout the region, including in 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. All right, time for our AL. I've switched it up because now 3/5 of the AL East is, well, the Blue Jays and the Rays are out of it. They're not making the playoffs, right? So instead of doing the AL East wrap up, we're switching it now to the AL Contenders wrap up, because earlier in this show, Dillon, I asked you about your concerns about whether or not if you were concerned that the Orioles might not even make the playoffs, because Kansas City and Minnesota are hot on their heels. Boston's not far behind them. And so now we're doing the AL Contenders wrap up. All right. Aaron Judge hit his 49th home run, and Giancarlo Stanton added his 22nd bomb to back Carlos Rodon, who picked up his 14th win with 6 shutout innings as Yankees tapped the Rockies 3-0. Eugenio, one of my favorite names, Eugenio Suarez smashed a grand slam for his 19th home run, driving in 5 to back 6 solid innings and 2-run ball from Ryan Nelson as baseball's hottest team won for the 22nd time in their last 30 games. D-backs 12, Red Sox 2. The Diamondbacks were cruising. They'd won 18-21. And then randomly got swept by Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And then they swept, I think they swept Cleveland right after that to get back on track. But it's crazy. That sweep came out of nowhere.
Just a small sneeze and then right back to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Which just reminded me of what I was going to say to you about other teams that are struggling as well, when I couldn't remember my point earlier. I'll get to that in a second.
All right.
Salvador Perez and Hunter Renfroe, who I thought was out of the league, he's back. Salvador Perez and Hunter Renfroe homered to back 6 innings of 2-run ball from Michael Wacha, who picked up his 11th victory as the Royals took care of business against the Phillies 7-4. And finally, St. Louis got 2 hits and 2 RBI apiece from Mason Wynn and Lars Nootbaar, and Andre Palante spun a gem, tossing 7 innings of 1-run ball as the Cardinals shut down the Twins 6-1. What I was going to say is the point that I forgot earlier. On August 11th, the Arizona Diamondbacks, August 11th of 2023, the Arizona Diamondbacks lost their 9th straight game to fall to 57-59. From August 16th to September 8th, the Texas Rangers lost 16 of 20 games to drop from a 2.5 game division lead to third place, 3 games out of the division lead.
Yep.
Over that span. And those two teams met in the World Series. So we can look at what the Orioles are doing right now. I posted this girl Tabitha, really fun follow on Twitter or X. She had posted something about the Orioles playing like crap, and I was like, this is the shit that teams go through right before they get hot and make a World Series run. And that's when I posted those stats about the Diamondbacks and the Rangers last year. The Orioles have a huge opportunity in front of them. They have a huge opportunity to right the ship. Again, hopefully the Tony Taters mash last night was the spark that they needed. They have an opportunity going into September to really play some good baseball against some substandard teams and clinch a postseason berth just in time to get Danny Coulombe and Jacob Webb and Grayson Rodriguez and Jordan Westburg back. Then you have those guys back. You go into the postseason with Corbin Burns, Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez, and Albert Suarez pitching out of your rotation. You move Cade Povich and Dean Kramer to the bullpen. You've got Coulombe. You've got Webb back. You've got hopefully Sir Anthony Dominguez is pitching well still for the team. Hopefully Soto, who seems to have figured it out a little bit, is back pitching well. And your offense is fully inserted again. Dillon, I think that this team has a run in them. Right now, it's hard to see it because of the injuries and how poorly they've been playing. But, you can't convince me that if this team gets into the postseason, that they don't have the opportunity to get white hot and make a run to the World Series.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of people say this team is dead. We have said it ourselves that this team is dead. But we've seen time and time again from previous teams and previous postseasons, and not just last year, of really it just shows you just got to get to the dance and see what happens. You know what I mean? You mentioned that the Rangers and Diamondbacks, they went through hell at some points last season. You know who also went through hell? The 2022 Phillies that went to the World Series. They lost to the Astros.
They fired their manager.
They fired their manager. They started off the season 21-39. And in September, they went 11-14. That's not inspiring any hope for the playoffs. It just kind of goes to show it doesn't matter how you limp your way in. You just kind of got to get in and hope that you get hot in October, because that's what it all comes down to. A lot of times, it doesn't even matter how you finish the season. It's what you do when the new season starts in October.
Absolutely. Look at the 2019 Washington Nationals. They started that year 19-31. Historically, to that point, they had the worst for that entire season. Historically, they had the worst bullpen in the history of baseball. They get into the postseason and they go on to win the World Series because they have guys. If it's not their turn to start, if they're not going to get a start in that series, they're moving to the bullpen. There are ways to manage your team in the postseason that is different than the regular season. That brings you to Brandon Hyde and his ability to manage well in the postseason. He got outmanaged and outclassed by Bruce Bochy last year in the postseason against the Texas Rangers. Hopefully, he's learned from those mistakes from last season, and he has an opportunity to really pave his way for the Orioles this year. Look, I've had a lot to say about Brandon Hyde. I'm not his biggest supporter by any stretch of the imagination. I'd like to see him gone. But he has an opportunity ahead of him. And if he wins the World Series, what can I really say? You know, the Orioles have an opportunity ahead of them. They've just got to get hot at the right time. And again, hopefully the spark happened last night for that flame.
Yep. And I've had my fair share of criticisms of Hyde myself and his in-game management. And one thing I will say, that one thing we did not get to see is Brandon Hyde manage with a lead in October.
That's true.
Every move he made, he was behind the 8 ball and trying to crawl his way back. And each move, it seemed like, did not work out that great. Not necessarily saying that a better move would have made things any better, but we haven't seen him. I've always said when it comes to criticizing managers a lot, even though I do it a ton, we don't necessarily see what a manager is fully capable of in his decision-making processes until he does it in October. Because we know in October, it's all hands on deck. We know in a 162-game season, there are guys in the bullpen that are unavailable, guys on the bench who are unavailable, that a manager will never come out and say publicly that they were unavailable. Maybe it's personal issues, whatever it may be. But there's some stuff that he just will not make public about certain guys being unavailable. In October, it's all hands on deck, especially in those game 1 and game 2. There's really not anybody there that's unavailable. You have everyone there at your disposal. I want to see what he does when he's got a lead and it's the 6th or 7th inning and you got tough matchups coming up. That's what we can really see what Brandon Hyde is made of. And until we see that, we won't really know. We'll just be sitting here in September criticizing his every move and continuing forward with that.
Well, you know, we've got there's a little bit of a streak that the Orioles have going right now. They haven't won a postseason game since Game 3 of the ALDS in 2014. So we're coming up on 10 years now without winning a postseason game. And I think it's gonna, echo a lot of people's sentiment if they don't win a postseason game again this year. We'll see. That's not what the hope. The hope is they get into October a little bit healthier and they're ready to make a run, and that they do make a run. And we will certainly see. We've got about 5-6 weeks until that opportunity arises. So actually, it's 5 weeks. They've got 5 weeks until the postseason. So hopefully they get there. They've got that opportunity right in front of them. As for today's game, Albert Suarez looks to be the stopper. I put looks to be the stopper because when I wrote these notes, the Orioles were losing 5-2 in the 8th inning. Albert Suarez looks to keep the run going for the Orioles as he takes the ball at 4:05 this afternoon, hoping to build upon his last 3 starts in which he has thrown 17 2/3 scoreless innings. Suarez is 6-4 with a 3.18 ERA this season, including 5-4 with a 3.19 ERA in 17 starts. In his last outing, Suarez went 6 shutout innings, walking none and striking out 6 to pick up his 6th win of the season. In 3 starts since taking over for Grayson Rodriguez in the rotation, Suarez has allowed 0 runs in 17 2/3 innings pitched, walking just 3 and striking out 17. He has made 1 start this season versus Houston, and it was arguably his worst. On June 23rd, Suarez allowed 5 runs on 10 hits and 3 walks with just 1 strikeout in 5 innings of an Orioles 8-1 loss at the hands of the Astros. The Astros counter with left-handed pitcher Framber Valdez. Valdez is 13-5 with a 3.20 ERA and 1.14 WHIP in 22 starts this season. In 6 starts since the All-Star break, Valdez is 5-0 with a 2.06 ERA and .788 WHIP. Valdez is the pitcher who opposed Suarez back on June 23rd, and he tossed 7 innings of 1-run ball on 6 hits, 2 walks, and 7 Ks. All told, Valdez is 1-0 with a 4.08 ERA in 5 games, including 4 starts versus the Orioles in his career. Tough lefty going against the Orioles today, Dillon. I'm going to tell you what I think the lineup is going to be today, and I want you to let me know what you think of it. And this is assuming that Mountcastle is ready to go.
Is this your prediction of the lineup or what you would do?
This is my prediction for the lineup. What I would do is completely different because I think that there are players that are everyday players who should be in there every day because they're everyday players.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I have Austin Slater leading off playing left field. I have Adley Rutschman batting second at catcher. Gunnar Henderson batting third playing shortstop. Anthony Santander batting fourth playing right field. Ryan Mountcastle batting fifth playing first base. Eloy Jimenez batting sixth as the DH. Colton Cowser batting seventh in center field. Ramon Arias batting 8th at second base, and Emmanuel Rivera batting 9th and playing third base. I think they want to get Jackson Holiday the day off. Rivera will get in there. He's played 17 games as a DH and 17 games at first base and 77 games at third base this year. So I think that they would put him at third base. Mountcastle, this is contingent upon his hand or wrist feeling good enough for him to play today. Brandon Hyde did say last night that Mountcastle was getting worked on with his wrist the entire game in case they needed him, but that he was pretty sure he wasn't going to use him last night. With that in mind, your thoughts on the lineup I've presented?
That is actually exactly what I had written down.
Really?
Exactly. Now, it will be interesting to see what kind of changes made if Mountcastle's out of there. Do you throw in O'Hearn in there against the tough lefty? Or are we going to see our pride and joy, the masked assassin, James McCann, thrown in there as catching back-to-back days with Adley DHing back-to-back days?
Right. And if Mountcastle can't play, they're going to use O'Hearn. They will. He'll start at first base. They're not going to put Tony there. They're not going to put Arias there. I think that the lineups you and I have put down is exactly what it's going to be, and the only difference is if Mountcastle still isn't ready, then O'Hearn slides into that 5th slot, but maybe it's Jimenez in the 5th slot, O'Hearn in the 6th. We'll see. Last week we got the lineup exactly right, so hopefully we're for the sake of just being right, we can say hopefully that this is the lineup. For today's game. But all right, as for what's on tap, the Orioles will wrap up their 4-game series with Houston on Sunday. As you say, Kikuchi takes on, I'm guessing, Dean Kramer. The starter hasn't been announced yet.
Probably.
Let me see.
Kramer would make the most sense.
Yeah. I left the Orioles starter information from last week in there because I'm thinking it's Dean Kramer, but I wasn't sure yet. And every other time that I thought I knew who the pitcher was going to be, but it wasn't announced, I've been wrong like 3 different times. So not going to do that. For the Astros, Kikuchi is 6-9 with a 4.37 ERA and 1.29 WHIP overall, but he is 2-0 with a 2.45 ERA and 1.03 WHIP in 4 starts with the Astros. Kikuchi has faced the Orioles twice this season, going 1-0 with a 1.74 ERA in his last outing versus Baltimore. Kikuchi, as a member of the Blue Jays, went 6 innings, allowing 1 run on 4 hits with 6 strikeouts to pick up the victory. After their series with Houston concludes, the Orioles are off on Monday as they travel to L.A. for 3 with the Dodgers before heading to Colorado for a weekend series with the Rockies. What does a successful week look like for you, Dillon, next week?
Oh, man. As terrible as this sounds, I feel like a successful week looks like just tell me that nobody else hit the IL.
Okay.
Okay. Because, man, when I saw what was the news the other day when Nick Vespi got called up when Rock Kabaka reported that Vespi has a locker in the Orioles clubhouse. I'm like, oh no, who's on the IL now? And luckily that wasn't the case whatsoever. But
yeah, it was Aiken going on paternity leave, and Vespi's already back down in the minor leagues with Aiken returning.
Man.
I know. He's been optioned 5 times this year.
He is a trooper.
You know, the Orioles signed his brother as an amateur free agent, who was an undrafted free agent this season. They signed him.
They figure once Nick's options are all up and they can't keep doing this with anymore, hey, your brother, step right in.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we do with Vespi brothers, all right? All right, a successful week here. I'm actually going to say 3-3, honestly.
Yeah.
To get back on track here.
That's assuming that they win 2 or 3 against Colorado and win 1 or 3 against the Dodgers.
Yes.
For me, I think they've got to go 4-2. I think they've got to go 4-2. Only because, I mean, I don't really care if they win the division. Yeah, you want that for bragging rights, but they won the division last year, had 5 days off, and then got swept in the ALDS. Now, look, this isn't really the same situation because they're not hot right now. They're not playing now. 3 weeks from now, they could be white hot playing their best baseball. And it's like, no, I don't want all that time off. But Colorado is really bad. They're really bad. You've got to sweep them. I'm anticipating you're losing 2 or 3 to the Dodgers, but you've got to figure out a way to sweep Colorado for me to. And if not, then you've got to find a way to take 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. But I think that this team 3-3, I'll be okay because I've been saying for 2 weeks now, tread water. Just tread water till you get to the end of September. You know, if you tread water, you're not going to get caught. You're going to make if you play 500 ball the rest of the way, you're going to make the playoffs. Tread water until these guys come back and get you healthy, and then make that run. Go ahead.
They're 26-29 since the start of the last Houston series, and they're still the second best team in the American League somehow.
Yeah.
So it kind of just goes right with your point. Tread water, get into the postseason. Obviously, I would prefer to win the division.
We all would.
Even with that 5-day layoff. That 5-day layoff this year might be exactly what this team needs with how many guys are coming back with seemingly a timetable for late September. That 5 days might be crucial for getting one of those guys back who might not be ready right at the end of September, might be able to get those back for a playoff series. But if you can't get the division, my next priority is top wild card. Make sure you're playing that first game in front of your home fans. You know, especially if you're in the wild card.
And if you're the top wild card,
you want to have a guaranteed home game somewhere in there.
Well, if you're in the wild card series as the top wild card team, that entire series is played at home. Yep. So you have an opportunity, you know, you get at least 2 home games, if not 3. Be either the division winner or the top wild card team. Either way, we've got to have a home game. I had an opportunity to go to both playoff games last year, and I missed them because I made a trip to Pittsburgh to visit 2 of my best friends in July, not realizing, holy crap, that's when the Orioles are going to be playing in the ALDS. And so I was out in Pittsburgh for the first 2 games of that division series last year, and I didn't get first time that the Orioles have been in the playoffs where they had a home game that I didn't get to go to. Literally in my entire life, I went to a home game in '96 with my dad. I went in '97 with my mom. I went in 2012. Did I go? Yeah, I went in 2012 by myself. The first game, I was like the Ravens had just kicked the Raiders' butt. And then I was like, I have to go to this game. I told my buddy who I was living with, I was like, dude, I got to pay you rent like a week late. But because I have to, and he was okay with it. He's my best friend in the world. He was like, yeah, that's fine. I had to go to the game. I got on the light rail On the way down to the stadium, I bought a club level seat just by myself for $120. There was a 2-hour rain delay, so I got to watch the rest of the 4 o'clock NFL games in the club level and then go watching the Orioles postseason game. So, yeah, I went in 2012. I was at the Dillon double game in 2014.
Same here.
Last year was the first time that the Orioles had a home playoff game in my entire life, and I didn't get to go. That has to change this year.
Man.
Anyway, it has to change this year. But
I was at game 1. It was an electric atmosphere for sure. You know,
well, and then
it still didn't quite meet the atmosphere of the Dillon double game.
Oh, well,
you know?
that game, dude, I'm sitting there in the stands and I'm falling asleep. I'm not even joking. We've been drinking. I'm sitting there with my best friend and his dad, and it's the 6th inning. The Orioles are down 6-3, and I'm just sitting there like they hadn't had a hit since like the 3rd inning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this team is just dead. What's happening? And like my dad's texting me. I was like, they're lifeless right now. And then they have the bases loaded in the 8th inning, and we're all going nuts. And like Delman hits the double. That the Seven Nation Army chant, the "We Won't Stop" chant, that you could hear it all from down the street. I'm jumping up and down, hugging dudes behind me who I have no idea who they even are. This is obviously pre-COVID. This was that moment is one of my top moments of all time at any sporting event, and I happened to be there. It was awesome. So and then I can only imagine what the atmosphere was like last year in Game 2 when the Orioles score 3 runs in the first inning. They go up 3-0, and then can you imagine? I'm glad I wasn't at that game. See them go up 3-0, and then they get their doors blown off in the next half inning.
Yeah,
that's so O's Derek Arnold. Like oh my gosh. But I digress. Today's show brought to you by County Sports Zone. High school sports season is officially underway. County Sports Zone will be reporting every score from every event with every school at every level throughout the state, all academic year long. Check it out. Check it all out right now at countysports.zone. Proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, Dillon, it's time for Take the Rake. Gunnar was something like 6 for 26 this week. Not great, but not terrible. He had 2 home runs since last Saturday. Jackson Holiday, 1 for 23. I didn't even bother putting the numbers in the notes. Ryan won. So now the standings are, I'm in the lead, 8 wins to Ryan's and his guests, 6 wins, and there are 3 ties. I think you're part of those 6 wins, Dillon. I think you got a victory for him somewhere in there.
Okay.
You get to pick first since Ryan won and you were sitting in for Ryan. So who you got for Take Drake? Oh, you cannot take Gunnar Henderson because Ryan took him last week.
Okay. And when does the week start? Is it with the Houston game on Sunday or
today? Today.
It's today. Okay. Starting today, going into basically Friday against Colorado, right?
No, through Friday. Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna 2 games Houston, 3 games Dodgers, 1 game Colorado. I am gonna go ahead and take, and I'm sorry, Ryan, if this doesn't work out. You can blame me all you want. I'm gonna take Adley.
I took Adley a couple of weeks ago, trying to manifest and will him into getting hot.
I'm going to try to manifest this. He got some games on the road this week, and I'm a sucker for splits sometimes, but Adley's numbers have been a lot better on the road than at home this year, so I'll take it.
All right. So there's 2 obvious guys, right?
Sure.
There's Tony Taters.
And Ramon Arias.
Tony, for me, is, despite that home run last night, unless he gets on a June and July tear again, I feel like he's been swinging for the fences a lot and popping out a lot. Mm-hmm. He's also been expanding the zone and striking out a good bit too. Gunnar, I thought the power was back, and then it's only been like a handful of games. He homered 4 times in 5 games last week. Mm-hmm. And then he hasn't homered since, and he's been in a little bit of a slump himself. I got to take Gunnar. I have to. I was going to talk myself into Colton Cowser, but I'm still not a firm believer in him. I like him. He's been playing a lot more consistently recently, but the strikeouts are a lot. And some of those strikeouts, he looks awful.
Yeah.
Like nobody looks quite. BJ Surhoff, one of my favorite Orioles of all time. Nobody looked quite as bad on a strikeout as BJ Surhoff did. He would have those flailing swings where he would spin around and put his head up in the air. And I feel like Colton Cowser has some ugly looking strikeouts. Despite their propensity to be good hitters. So
the changeup is his arch nemesis.
Oh my God. It's just, I don't know, man. I guess you got to look fastball and adjust to everything else. By the way, my last we had a playoff game and we got absolutely torched, but I faced Steve Johnson in that playoff game. Steve Johnson and Dave Johnson were on the team that beat us.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, and I faced Steve Johnson. The first time I ever faced him last year, I walked and grounded out weekly against him. Last game, he doesn't throw nearly as hard. He's probably throwing low to mid 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he still has a nasty breaking ball. And his fastball moves, right? It definitely moves away from a right-handed hitter. And he throws me a fastball to start the at-bat. I swing at it, and it looked like it was right down the middle, center cut, and it moved so far outside that I popped it foul. And it was like an ugly swing because I had to adjust mid-swing. And then he throws me another fastball. It does the same thing, and I pop it straight back. Then I get the count to I get it to 3-2. I'm looking for this devastating curveball that he's going to throw me. I'm sitting on his curveball, like I'm sitting back waiting for it, and he just keeps pumping me fastballs, and I just keep fouling them off. One of them he threw high and tight, and I fouled it off. I was proud of myself that he didn't get me to swing and miss. I ended up on a fastball popping out to right field. It almost dropped in for the base hit. The right fielder had to make a diving play. It hit his glove, bounced out, and he still managed to maintain the catch.
Oh, okay.
He still managed to hold on to it. But it was just a fun at bat against a guy who used to pitch in the major leagues. And I was proud of myself. It was good.
I'm still holding on to my glory of an RBI ground out off of Josh Hader in high school. So
nice. I grounded out to second base like 12 years ago against Jay Watasik in the Susquehanna League. That was pretty cool. But yeah. So which brings me to my next point. Next week's show, everybody, will air on Sunday, not on Saturday, because I actually made the All-Star team in my baseball league. I'm participating in the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game next Saturday, which is all from like 8 to 3 next week. So
what you should be doing is having Ryan broadcast it live from there on Saturday.
Oh man, so you can see me. So you can see me in the Home Run Derby hit 300-foot fly balls. No, thank you.
No pressure, Paul.
No, but I'm super excited for that. I haven't played in leagues that had All-Star games in a long time, and they're doing an All-Star. I mean, they've had All-Star games in the past, but they've been canceled a lot recently. Like, I was going to be an All-Star each of the last 2 years, and they got canceled. So, like, to be part of the team this year, I'm super excited about that, and just really looking forward to playing in that game. So we will be broadcasting from 10 to 11 next Sunday rather than next Saturday.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 30 and over baseball. It's not a huge deal, but it is to me. So back off.
It's a huge deal for old geezers, all right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be 40 next year, and I'm making next month, and I'm making All-Star teams. I'm cool with it. All right, time for some viewer interaction. Daniel Pitts, last night was a good win, but how many more times are we going to fool ourselves into thinking that this is the spark that gets us out of this slump? It never is. And somebody said, I thought that McCann's broken nose was the spark, and it was. The Orioles won 3 of 4 that series. Jackson Holliday came up and hit a grand slam in his first game back, but that last game of the series was also the game that Jordan Westberg had his hand broken on a hit by pitch, which sucked all the wind out of the team, and they haven't played very well since. Dillon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. It really is. I mean, we have said this so many times on after a big win, heck, even the win in New York, it's like, okay, now we got some momentum going into game 3 in New York, and then that just all got sucked out right all over again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a fair question until you really get rolling with it.
Well, and that's the other thing is like the final game before the All-Star break, the Yankees had won the first 2 games. The Orioles were down, 2 in the ninth, 3 in the they were down 2 in the ninth inning. After Kimbrel came in.
Verdugo.
Right. Thank you, Volpe and Verdugo. Exactly. And the Orioles got that win on a ball that it was a routine fly ball that should have been called. Mm-hmm. And Verdugo got a bad read and then fell over, and it turned into a game-winning RBI double for Cedric Mullins. But it's hard for that to be the spark because, yes, it kept you in first place going into the break, but then you have 4 or 5 days off immediately following that. And they come out, they take 2 or 3 from Texas, but then they went to the Padres, took care of business against them. They went to the Marlins and got their doors blown off by the Miami Marlins of all teams. So, which also, if the Orioles are going to be facing the Rockies and the Tigers and the White Sox, they've got to actually play like a team that's better than those teams that are playing down to their competition. Mm-hmm. But it's hopefully this was spark. That was as big a win as they're going to have this year. Randall Fracase, he says O's need to win this and next series. It's gonna be tough to win the series. I mean, they've got to win 3 of 4, including 3 in a row against Houston, and then win 2 or 3 against the Dodgers. That's a tall order.
Oh yeah, that is a tall order. I mean, we're not in must-win territory yet. Right. Mm-hmm. And you hope that you don't get to a must-win territory, but the must-win territory will really be coming up unless you absolutely blow these next few weeks. Like I'm talking about getting the doors blown off you and lose every series here for the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. You will enter some must-win territory games in the last 6 games of the season, where you have 3 in New York and you have 3 in Minnesota, where you got 1, where you have those that are either deciding the division, or the last series of the season is against Minnesota, could be deciding wild card slotting. Mm-hmm. For all we know, if Minnesota takes care of business against the Orioles may just be staying in Minnesota and facing them in the wild card series.
I hate that you even said that. Let's get that out of the air. Although the Orioles have owned
possible.
the Orioles have owned Minnesota this year. They have. But hopefully, if they're playing Minnesota, it's in Baltimore as the number 1 wild card, facing the Twins as the number 3 wild card. Daniel Pitts, he says, Paul, how much longer before you remove the quotation marks from ace when talking about Albert Suarez? And let's look at this, because Albert Suarez had some really great starts for the Orioles. He leads the major leagues with 8 shutout starts, right? 8 scoreless starts. But there were times this year where it was like, you can't take this guy out of the rotation. And then he goes out and he gives up 5 runs in 5 innings, right? So let's take a look at this so I can have kind of some stats here to back it up for me. All right. Suarez's first 3 starts, he went 5 2/3 shutout on 3 hits and no walks. 5 2/3 shutout on 4 hits and 2 walks. Then he goes 4 innings, 4 runs on 7 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, 1 home run. Then he's in relief, the next several outings, till he goes back into the rotation. 4 innings pitched, 2 hits, no runs. This is at the end of May. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run. 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 runs. 5 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs. 3 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, 5 walks. 5 innings, 10 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks. I don't know, man. Dillon, what do you think? Has his track record? I mean, then you have 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 2 innings, 8 hits, 6 runs. Like through July, he had. Let's look from the beginning of June through the end of July. He made 9 appearances, all starts, and he had a 5.27 ERA. So that's a 5.27 ERA over 9 starts. But now, 17 2/3 shutout innings. I don't think you can call him an ace yet, because he's had stretches where he's been very good. And he's also 35 years old. Yeah. And he hasn't pitched in the majors since 2017 until this year. Can you start to trust him more? Yeah, I think you can trust him more. But can you call him an ace? Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. And just kind of like what we were talking about earlier in the show about what our definitions of an ace are, I don't think you can even go into the top echelon, the ace category, until you're putting up multiple seasons of this, not multiple starts of this.
Exactly.
And in fact of the matter is, with Albert Suarez's age, he will never be called an ace. I'm sorry to say it. He won't be. And this is a situation where this has been a beyond pleasant surprise.
Oh, there's a good chance he wins comeback player of the year.
Oh, absolutely. And fact of the matter is that Suarez, and I don't want to speak into existence, but Suarez could struggle over the next 3 starts. We don't know. And if that happens, I'm not going to sit here and point finger and blame Albert Suarez. I'm at a point right now where I'm thankful for anything Albert Suarez provides his team, because I ran down a list of the amount of starters that the Orioles could have been banking on this season when it came entering spring training. You had a list of about 10 guys there, and not one of their names was Albert Suarez.
Correct. And then when he came onto the scene, I think he had that 7 strikeout performance against the Phillies where he was touching 97 miles an hour with his fastball. We're like, who the hell is this guy? Even then, I didn't believe. I was like, it's spring training. This isn't anybody. This is like Jake Fox syndrome, right?
Right. Yeah. And I, like I said, anything he provides the Orioles, I'm thankful for. I don't know if he's going to start a playoff game for the Orioles. I don't know if he's going to work out of the bullpen for the Orioles when it comes time for the playoffs. Whatever it is, I'm thankful he's providing it, and I'm not going to question how he's doing it. I'm just going to let him do his thing.
Yeah, he's got good stuff. Everybody agrees he's got good stuff. He's just got to stay consistent with it. And again, it comes back to we're calling somebody an ace because they've been consistent. That's not an ace. That's not the consistency isn't the be-all, end-all for an ace. There's other things, other aspects. He's pitching really well right now. Let's take that. No matter what happens from here on out, Suarez has been nothing but good for the Orioles this year. It's been nothing but a good story for this team. Yep. Daniel goes on to say, I love this. What about calling up Bradfield if Mullins is out for a week or so? Give him a look, and he won't hurt us on defense, and he has insane speed. Honestly, Mullins hasn't given us much offensively. Anyway, Mullins has actually been Cedric Mullins since the beginning of June. Offensively, he's been hitting the ball well. He's been playing great defense. I don't dislike the idea. Bradfield's at Double-A right now. He's getting on base a ton. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's got ridiculous speed. There's a spot for a guy like that on this team. Now, you could be getting Jorge Mateo back at the end of September. I'm not banking on that because that elbow injury looked gruesome to me. But if you can get maybe Ricky Bradfield is a guy who you can put on this team to be a defensive replacement, to be a pinch runner, to make add that little bit of electricity that Jorge Mateo brought. Now, here's the thing: if that's going to happen, you've got a week to add Bradfield to the 40-man roster. If he's not on the 40-man roster by September 1st, he can't play for you in the postseason. I don't think it's going to happen, but I am intrigued by the idea of it because at the end of the day, there's something that he does that Mullins doesn't do a lot of, and that's he can bunt to get on base. Mullins has been doing it more recently, but there's something to be said for Bradfield's ability to bunt, his speed, his defense, and the better arm that he has. I don't hate it. I just don't think the Orioles are going to do it.
Yeah, I don't think the Orioles are going to do that either. I mean, he did just get called up to Double-A, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? So, he's only had that much experience at Double-A. Could they do it? Absolutely. We've seen teams do it before, but just with that much experience, I would have viewed a possibility of calling up Bradfield to be a potential bench option and what they're lacking with not having Jorge Mateo around, of just being speed off the bench and potential defensive replacement, kind of fill that role of similar to what the Kansas City Royals used for Gerard Dyson in the 2014 and 15 playoffs. Start the game on the bench, come in as a pinch runner, 7th, 8th inning, and then finish the game on defense and not see a single at bat. But that would be the only situation. I don't think they're going to be even trying to put the pressure on Enrique Bradfield's shoulders to try to replace the starter production of Cedric Mullins. I don't see that.
I agree with you. Whatsoever. Now, you look at what he's done at the minor league level this year: 266 batting average, 351 OBP, 367 slugging, which you don't care about that. 717 OPS, a 124. I'm sorry. They don't have OPS points. That's his total bases. but he's got 64 stolen bases, 43 walks to 62 strikeouts. Now you look at what he's done at Double-A in 9 games, covering 44 plate appearances, 257, which is what it is, 395 on base percentage, 400 slugging, 795 OPS. In 44 at-bats, he struck out just 44 plate appearances, he struck out just 4 times. He's got 8 walks to his 4 strikeouts, 5 stolen bases, a double and 2 triples in 9 games. At Double-A, that plays, in my opinion, that plays. Does it play enough for him to get the call to the big league level in the next week? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. But do you think, Dillon, that he could be in the Orioles' plans as early as next spring?
I don't know about next spring. I think that there's a possibility we're talking about him, next July, next August.
Mm-hmm.
For having just a couple weeks at Double-A, it's probably where he's going to finish the season, and it's probably where he's going to start next year too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be talking about potential promotion for him to Norfolk in May, June, those months, and then if he's lighting the world on fire in Norfolk, then there could be an expedited call up from there. But the earliest I'm expecting to see him at all would be mid next year.
And let's be specific about what lighting the world on fire for Enrique Bradfield is. It's hitting like 270, but getting on base at a 380 clip and stealing a bunch of bases. That's lighting the world on fire for Bradfield. We don't expect him to come up here and hit 280 at the big league level. We expect him to come up and play good defense, steal a bunch of bases, and if he can hit 250 in the majors with a 340, 350 on base percentage, that's a guy that you can put in your lineup every day. That's an all-star. And if not an all-star, that's a 5-win player. Yep. Dillon, I don't want to keep you too long, so we're going to start burning through these here. Randall Fracase, Burns is showing he's not worth the big check. These rough patches are far too common with Burns. I was nervous about him last year. A lot of teams were a lot of players, a lot of fans were clamoring for the Orioles to trade for Corbin Burns. And I loved it when they did trade for him in the offseason. But there was something about his peripherals. It looked like things were kind of on the downward trend for him over the last couple of seasons. Is he worth 30 to 40 million? Again, this is 100%. This is what you said, that it's the market.
Here we go. We're going full circle.
It is. This is exactly what it is. The market is going to dictate what he gets. When you look at it, he's going to be the best pitcher on the free agent market in the offseason. Mm-hmm. Blake Snell's going to opt out. Garrett Cole could opt out, but only get a better contract from the Yankees. He's not going anywhere. So it's going to be Blake Snell, and it's going to be Corbin Burns. And can Corbin Burns gets deeper in the games more frequently than Blake Snell does? Those are going to be the top 2 pitchers. Walker Buehler's a free agent, but he's been hurt for a decade, it feels like.
Max Fried will be out here too.
Yeah, but he's been hurt he's been hurt on and off, and he hasn't been very good his last several starts. And I don't think that you can put Max Fried at the same level right now as a Corbin Burns or a Blake Snell.
Sure.
So the money that he's going to get is going to be because it's going to be dictated by the fact that he's a top 2 pitcher on the free agent market next year. And that's going to go a long way. Are the Orioles going to be able to outbid for a guy that is and do you want to outbid for that guy? Do you want to outbid for Corbin Burns? If he's willing to take $25 million, okay. If he's looking for $35 to $40 million, do you want to pay that price for a guy who is probably not going to get back to that? I hate to say it, I could get blasted for it. He's probably not getting back to that Cy Young form of 2021.
Can I use the fan response of, well, it's not my money? So
yeah. That's true.
I don't care what you spend. I just want the talent, man.
Yeah.
Not affecting my pockets.
That is very true. That is very true. Randall goes on to say Burns is a top number 2 at best. Burns is no ace. I'd rather sign Scherzer, Wheeler, or Verlander than Burns. Scherzer's going to retire. I can't see any way imaginable that Scherzer isn't going to retire at the end of this year. Wheeler just signed a big contract extension with the Phillies in the offseason. I know the article he's reading from. This was from back before Wheeler signed that contract extension.
Okay.
And then Verlander may pitch one more year, but he may retire too. Now if you want to sign Verlander for 1 year to try and make another World Series run, and then you get Bradish back fully healthy after next season, I can see that. But I'm not going to sign those guys over Corbin Burns.
No, and honestly, just reading them, like, holy crap! Just thinking that 2 of those 3 pitchers were veteran arms that the Orioles beat in the ALDS 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
They're up
when they were at the top of their game.
Up there.
Yeah, they're both 40, 41 years old. Daniel Pitts. The Orioles called up old Cole Irvin to replace new Cole Irvin this week, and neither are very good. Irvin pitched well the other day, and if it wasn't for Holiday dropping the transfer, Irvin would have given up 1 run. He did what the Orioles asked him to. He kept them in the ball game. They came back and they tied that game, and then Dominguez gave up the walk-off home run again. Look, Cole Irvin did what the Orioles needed him to do last week, but yeah, that's pretty funny. Old Cole Irvin replaced new Cole Irvin.
It's giving me memories to old Mike Wright and new Mike Wright when they sent Mike Wright to Seattle and picked up Sean Armstrong from Seattle, and and the guys over at Bird's Eye View always called him new Mike Wright.
That's too funny. Although Sean Armstrong did put together some nice seasons for Tampa Bay recently.
Oh yeah, he has.
Randall, O's would have been better off getting Fetty over Rogers. Love Eflin. Glad he's coming back sooner than later. Well, yeah, I mean, how Fetty went to St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
How's he been doing?
I do not think he's been doing well, actually. I wanted to get Eric Fetty. He's been putting together a great season, but I don't think things have been going well for him recently. Let's see here. 5 and 2/3
with a 4.98.
Yeah, 5 and 2/3, 2 runs allowed, 6 runs, 4 runs allowed, 5 innings, 1 run allowed, 5 innings, 5 runs allowed, 4 innings, 3 runs allowed. It really hasn't been that great of a start for him in St. Louis.
That 4 innings, 3 runs allowed. That's his last game with the White Sox. His first game with the Cardinals, he went 5 innings, allowed 5 runs. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, he's allowed. What is that? That's 12 runs in 21 2/3 innings. Again, that's a 4.98 ERA. That's why I didn't want Eric Fetty, because he pitched well in Japan, and then he comes back over here and he pitches well for a really bad team. Then the pressure's on to pitch well for a team that's in playoff contention, and he's kind of falling apart out there for them. So, yeah, would you rather have him over Rogers? I don't even know that I can say that because Rogers is younger. You do have him for team control, and if you can figure him out, if you can go to the minors, do what you need him to do in the minors, and then you can really work with him all off season and get him off and running next year, then no, I'd rather have Rogers. But right now, they've both been bad. It's you're damned if you're damned if you don't there.
Yep.
Daniel Pitts, the Orioles have been making every starting pitcher they face lately look like an all-star. I just don't understand how they have all forgotten how to hit. It's crazy, the talent on this team, and they face a soft tosser and they just can't even put the bat on the ball.
Yeah, it's been rough, and more than anything, just hope that that slide is ending here pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, it can all just be in the past pretty soon and forgotten about if they can get on a hot stretch here to finish out August and head into September.
Yeah. Daniel says, Paul, people on X keep saying you were being too negative. I think you're being realistic. Imagine the Orioles X if the team falls out of the wild card even for a day. Yeah, dude, welcome to my life, man. I'm not negative about the Orioles to be a pessimist. I'm negative about the Orioles because I see what's happening with the team. When you see me being negative, it's not because I love this team more than everything except for my wife and my daughter, right? So when you see me being negative about the team, it's because I'm watching with my own 2 eyes them playing poor baseball. And the fact of the matter is they have played bad baseball, a bad brand of baseball for 2.5 months. And if you think that pointing that out makes me a negative person, then I'm not for you, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything is okay when it's not. Ryan Ripken, I love Ryan Ripken. I respect Ryan Ripken. He's made a big name for himself very quickly in this field. He comes out and says the O's are fine all the time, and it rubs people the wrong way because they are clearly not fine. But he's also saying that from the perspective of somebody who has played at the second highest level of professional baseball in this country. He has played AAA baseball. A lot of these guys that he's talking about when he says the O's are fine are former teammates of his. He knows a lot of these players. He knows what it's like to be part of the grind. So he's never going to say, no, the Orioles are bad. He's going to come out and he's going to say the O's are fine, because honestly, they are fine. If you look at the big picture, right? If you look at the big picture, no matter what happens this season, this team is fine because they've got a lot of really good and young players. They've got a lot of money that they can spend now with new ownership. They have guys who are going to be coming back from injury next year. They can reload this offseason. They can go into next spring training with ideas of a World Series run again, and it can be an accurate idea for what they want to do. They are fine. With regards to where they are with this season right now, they're not fine. But it's to be expected when you look at how badly hurt the rotation is. The offense is inexcusable. It's inexcusable how bad the offense has been for extended spurts this year. The entire team goes cold at the exact same time. It's ridiculous how they collectively slump at the exact same time. So you want to tell me I'm negative? People want to tell me I'm negative. All right, you can think I'm negative. I'm realistic because I can watch this team, and even though I love them with everything I've got, I can say, yeah, this isn't perfect. This isn't good. They need to be better. There's nothing wrong with that. Daniel goes on to say, oh, my bad. I don't see any reason why we can't be this year's Rangers or Diamondbacks. That's what the hope is. I'm sorry. I'm trying to move here for Dillon's sake.
Just get to the dance. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Randall, I like the positivity. Valdez is due for a loss. Go Suarez, go. This is like go dog go because the Orioles got the dog on the mountain today. Daniel Pitts, I miss Ryan's insanely loud computer fan. Ryan Blake's laptop. The last 2 weeks, his fan has been. It sounded like he has like a highway right in his backyard, and it's never happened until the last 2 weeks.
Oh,
but he says
it's going with the team.
Yeah, and he said it's done that all year. That's the first time we've heard it.
Oh, wow.
Adit says, I feel like Povich will have numbers next year that are around 80 to 85% of what Bradish did last year. Yeah, I mean,
I like the optimism.
That would be fantastic. Povich has to be able to control the strike zone. I'm not as big a believer in Povich as a lot of people are. I think Povich is going to top out as number 4 starter for this team at his best. I don't see him. The stuff's good, but I just don't see him being a top end of the rotation starter. I don't see him being like Kyle Bradish. To me, Kyle Bradish is an ace. I think Kyle Bradish, and I said at the beginning of the year, I think Kyle Bradish is better than Corbin Burns. Kyle Bradish, to me, is an absolute ace. Povich, I don't think he sniffs that. And that's why the Bradish loss was like the biggest loss, in my opinion, for the Orioles this year, because he was pitching. He was fourth in Cy Young voting last year. He should have been top 3. He was better than Gossman all the way around last year, except for strikeouts. Mm-hmm. And this year he was pitching even better. The loss of Bradish is the toughest blow that the Orioles have had to absorb all season.
For sure.
Yeah. Randall says, congrats and good luck to me with my All-Star stuff. So that's cool. Thank you, Randall. I appreciate that. And then Adit says, prove a deal with Walker Buehler as a back-end starter next year. Who the hell knows, man? I'm not even there yet. Like, we'll see what this team does in the offseason. I don't think Walker Buehler is going to be at the top of their list. I also don't think – I think that Brandon Hyde gets a reprieve because they'll use the injuries as reason why the team floundered a little bit. And I don't think that they're going to do a knee-jerk reaction and go sign all these different players next year. I do think they need to sign somebody to hit in the middle of their order. They need a veteran bat, which they won't sign. And I think that they need to get another starter or two. What that starter looks like remains to be seen. We've seen them we've seen them dumpster dive to go get Jordan Lyles and then Kyle Gibson, and they both worked out fairly well for the Orioles. Could they go get starters like that again next year? Guys who are going to give you innings? Maybe. I think they will get some starters. They need bullpen help in the worst way, and you can't bank on Field coming back from Tommy John surgery and being that guy.
Yeah, I mean we're still a ways away from even thinking about what's going to happen this offseason. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have to play it by ear, and we got to get to October 1st and then go from there.
But the good news is we air every weekend, year round. So if you want to talk about what the Orioles are going to do in the offseason, join us in the offseason. We will be here every step of the way to talk about the Orioles as they head towards the postseason, as they head towards the offseason, and then as they head towards spring training, hopefully with a revamped ball club next year. That's going to do it for us on the show today. Dillon, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we kept you until 11:40. So that happens a lot with this show.
All good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, you always do a great job. That's why you're our go-to when Ryan can't do the show. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we certainly don't have a show. Thank you to all of our loyal fans, listeners, viewers. Without you, we 100% do not have a show. So thank you.